Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping into a very specific 26-foot Winnebago aspect and hitting the open road.
We are, and we've got a stack of sources that asks a really fundamental question.
It really does. What does it mean to be a hero in modern, flawed America? Our mission today is to navigate one author's deeply personal, midlife crisis road trip. And we're going to view his journey through this magnificent lens of Homer's Odyssey.
And Joseph Campbell's framework, which is just so crucial here, we're searching for the heroic ideal in, of all places, small-town America.
A hero who, by the way, might be pushing 40, definitely regrets a decision he made on national television, and is guided by the ghosts of philosophers.
It's such an essential quest because the author, Brad Herzog, he's not looking for some flawless Superman figure.
No, not at all.
He gets that the heroic ideal is defined not by perfection, but by how we deal with our own imperfections, our unmet expectations, our hubris.
Right. So we're contrasting the grand, impossible scale of ancient mythology with the quiet daily courage you might find in a place like Athena, Oregon.
Or the ultimate and very surprising end point of his journey, a tiny town called Troy.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole thing. We have to start with the catalyst, the event that basically shoved the author out onto the interstate.
It all starts with an envelope.
An invitation to his Cornell 15th reunion. And that single piece of mail triggers this profound existential crisis.
It forces him to confront what he calls the gap.
The gap, the massive gulf between the grandiose ambitions he had in his early 20s and the reality of his life pushing 40.
He talks about feeling aches where ambition once was. That's such a great line.
It is. He's worried about minivans and mortgages, instead of achieving universal impressiveness.
That moment of forced reflection is just so critical. Because returning to the origin of his dreams, that elite university, it just made him realize he hadn't achieved the mythical success he'd defined for himself.
He wanted to be enshrined. He literally says he wanted to be in an encyclopedia.
And instead, he's dealing with the grinding reality of the everyday. But, before he even gets in the Winnebago, he has this defining failure of courage played out on a massive national stage.
Yes, the legendary Who Wants to Be a Millionaire moment. It's incredible. He tried out almost on a whim.
Right, and he passes these preliminary quizzes that test both his general knowledge and, his speed.
And he wins the fastest finger round by a breathtaking 13/100ths of a second.
Unbelievable.
Which puts him in the hot seat, staring into those bright lights, just one question away from being, truly financially set.
He's staring at the $125,000 question. And you have to remember, at the time, that was a massive, massive barrier for most contestants.
A huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And the question itself was so pointed, it was almost mythological in its theme.
It was. Which of these American Westerns was not a remake of a Japanese film?
And the options were The Magnificent Seven, The Outrage, High Noon, and A Fistful of Dollars.
Now, he knew the remakes. He had a really strong suspicion, almost a certainty, that the answer was High Noon.
And this is the moment. This is where the modern quest for heroism just completely diverges from the ancient one.
Oh, absolutely. He'd brag to his friends, that if he ever got that far, he would go for it.
He had that great line, the show's not called Who Wants to Be Slightly Better Off.
Exactly. But when the pressure hit, he didn't go for it. He chose prudence.
He took the guaranteed $64,000 and he walked away, despite that certainty just gnawing at him.
And the irony is just crushing, isn't it? The correct answer was, in fact, High Noon.
A classic film centered entirely on one man's gallantry and courage in the face of, inevitable opposition.
And he chose security over the audacity of the hero. That failure of nerve, that decision to value guaranteed safety over testing his absolute limit, that's the regret that launches this entire road trip.
He says that decision continues to nag at his spirit. So what does this choice represent within the mythological framework he's building? He immediately applies this grand narrative to his personal financial choice.
He does. He identifies it as his personal Scylla and Charybdis moment.
Ah, okay.
In the Odyssey, these are the two monsters guarding a narrow strait. Charybdis is the unpredictable whirlpool, a pure risk of annihilation.
Total loss.
Right. And Scylla is the six-headed monster who guarantees the loss of 6 of your men. Odysseus has to choose which risk to take.
So Herzog faced a similar dilemma.
Exactly. Risk everything for the immense gain, which is Charybdis, or accept a guaranteed smaller loss, In his case, the potential to lose the $32,000 safety net to secure passage.
And he chose the most conservative route.
Which, while financially sound, felt like a spiritual defeat. It felt like a refusal of the heroic call to adventure.
And this is where we can bring in Ralph Waldo Emerson, who is one of the crucial companions on this journey.
Yes, he's always there in the passenger seat.
Herzog carried Emerson's essays on power, truth, and experience. And that Millionaire moment is a perfect test of experience.
It really is. Emerson would argue that genuine life, true growth, comes from testing our limits, from facing the unknown.
So by walking away, Herzog denied himself the full experience of that high-stakes test.
Oh.
He put his current condition over his potential for growth.
It's the difference between a life lived carefully and a life lived fully. But what's so remarkable is that this act of caution, it ironically led to the exact kind of external recognition he thought he wanted.
It's unbelievable. His book, States of Mind, which was published by a small press, was languishing on Amazon. The rank was like 122,040th.
Basically invisible.
And it just rocketed up the charts.
Overnight. Just because of a 5-minute interview on the Today Show about his quiz show appearance.
The book climbed to #2 on Amazon. The only thing ahead of it was an unpublished Harry Potter novel.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He becomes this unintended celebrity, but this sudden fame was just loaded with ambivalence for him.
Completely. He's on this huge show promoting a deeply earnest book about searching for virtue in small-town America.
On a show that he felt was, in his words, predicated on greed.
He felt like he had simultaneously sold out and peaked at age 31.
Such a gut punch.
And the final ultimate twist in this whole tale of fame and failure, it relates right back to his original goal of universal impressiveness. Getting into the encyclopedia.
And he was. He was asked to write an 800-word history of quiz shows for the Americana Annual.
He finally got what he wished for. Entry into the hallowed halls of historical record.
Except the entry began with a half-page color photograph of him smiling wanly, having just failed that very public test of courage.
So he wasn't enshrined for his intellect or his virtue. He was memorialized for his televised moment of financial timidity.
The painful lesson he takes from that is just so clear. Be very, very specific with your aspirations.
Otherwise, the universe will grant you the letter of your wish, but not the spirit.
Precisely.
So this confluence of professional disillusionment, the regret over his courage, and realizing that his internal angst was making him irritable at home, it all led to the decisive moment.
Right. His wife, Amy, she recognized that he needed a geographical separation to regain perspective.
She delivered the mandate. Go take a drive. Don't come back until you do.
A 31-day, self-imposed exile, an American walkabout. And this is the official launch of the heroic quest, structured specifically around that ancient model.
He chose the Odyssey framework because Odysseus' voyage home, it wasn't just a travelogue, was it?
Not at all. It was, as Campbell defined it, a pilgrimage toward an understanding of humanity. Campbell teaches us that myth is society's dream, stories that use archetypes to help us structure our own search for meaning.
So that explains his traveling band.
Exactly. He has Homer, navigating blindly, providing the grand epic structure.
He has Campbell the mythologist, providing the archetypal map.
And he has Emerson, the transcendentalist, ensuring the journey remains focused on self-reliance, internal truth, and that idea of experience.
And they are all riding in a 26-foot Winnebago aspect. I love that he points out the name aspect.
Yes. It suggests the vehicle itself is a component, a facet of the bigger picture he's trying to assemble.
It ties directly back into Emerson's focus on seeing the whole truth through individual experiences. His stated goal is to explore America's nooks and crannies, to find that elusive, heroic ideal, and return, possibly at peace.
That is a very tall order for a road trip.
It certainly is.
So the quest starts immediately in Seattle, and the mythological parallels just start popping up.
Right away, he's wandering through Belltown and stumbles upon the Cyclops Cafe.
A huge, blue-irised, neon-rimmed eye over the sidewalk.
And even though it was closed, he saw it as an immediate omen, a sign that the gods were watching and the journey had officially begun.
And that immediately pulls us into the story of Odysseus and Polyphemus, which is really the foundational narrative of the flawed hero.
It is. Odysseus wasn't forced into the Cyclops' cave. He chose to go inside.
Right. His prudence was completely overridden by his curiosity. He wanted to see the monster, taste the food, assess the situation. He prioritized his own personal excitement over the safety of his crew.
And that lapse in judgment leads directly to, immediate horrific cannibalism and their entrapment.
Of course, we all know the famous parts. Odysseus gets the giant drunk, he blinds him, and he names himself No Man to trick the other Cyclopes.
His escape, tied beneath the sheep, is the absolute peak of cunning and wit.
But the escape isn't the flaw. The flaw is what happens next.
The follow-up.
The follow-up. After they get safely back to the ship, Odysseus just cannot resist the temptation to trash talk. He screams his true name, his father's name, and his address Ithaca back at the blinded giant.
He just had to have the victory recognized. He needed that credit.
That single moment of sheer, unnecessary pride of hubris is devastating. Because Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea.
So by taunting him, Odysseus condemns himself to 10 years of wandering, losing all his men, and almost losing his entire kingdom.
It's the perfect illustration of how a single moment of ego can unravel a lifetime of achievement.
And this is why Herzog relates so much to Odysseus. The ancient hero isn't some flawless demigod.
No, he's physically unimposing, especially compared to other warriors. He's a liar, a schemer, often cruel, but he's deeply, deeply intelligent.
He's the original literary figure defined by his flaws. His Achilles heel, you could say, is his ego.
Exactly. And for Herzog, who's battling a midlife paunch and feeling, slightly shorter than he remembers, Odysseus provides a template. It suggests heroism isn't just for the physically impressive, but for the cunning and the resilient, even with their moral failings.
So the journey quickly moves from the coastal city to the mountain heights, which Herzog uses as this literal metaphor for aspiration.
Right. He stops for lunch in Paradise, Washington, right at the foot of Mount Rainier.
And Rainier stands as this monument to the impossibility of the heroic ideal.
It really does. It's absolutely beautiful. It invites man to conquer its peaks, to achieve that sense of conviction that comes from overcoming limitation. Just like the famous mountaineer Maurice Herzog, no relation, by the way, sought on Annapurna.
So climbing the mountain promises both the physical achievement, the Ithaca, and the philosophical awareness, the illumination.
Which is what Campbell suggests is required for the full monomyth, for the complete hero's journey.
But Rainier is a lie.
It is a profound lie. Beneath all that beauty, it is an active volcano. It holds more snow and ice than all the other cascades combined.
And a massive eruption would send these cataclysmic mudslides, they're called lahars, down into the river valleys, threatening millions of people.
It's a perfect symbol of sublime beauty that inherently holds immense, uncontrollable destruction within it.
So the Greeks encoded this duality into their mythology perfectly.
Oh, they were masters of it. They believed the mountains were the forge of Hephaestus, the god of fire and the blacksmith to Olympus.
And Hephaestus is ugly and lame, but he creates objects of unbelievable beauty and power.
Things like Zeus's thunderbolts, he is the repulsive creator of beauty. And then you also have Helen, whose perfect face launched 1,000 ships and caused the complete ruination of Troy.
So Rainier is a monument to blighted purity. It shows that our highest ideals are always intrinsically bound to this destructive potential.
It just reinforces the idea that we are fundamentally earthbound and subject to these colossal forces way beyond our control.
And if the mountain shows us the hubris inherent in nature, Herzog next turns his lens to the devastation caused when that hubris becomes, well, institutionalized.
Yes. He travels to the high desert mirage of Hanford, Washington.
And Hanford is a place of almost unbelievable institutional secrecy and tragedy.
It was chosen during the Manhattan Project for its remoteness and its river access, and residents were given just a month to leave their homes.
A month. And it was the site that produced the plutonium for the Fat Man bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki.
The institutional hubris here, it's just staggering, and it relates directly to Emerson's essay on power.
Oh, so?
Well, power, Emerson cautions, is not absolute. It has limits, particularly when man attempts to wield forces that are really intended for the divine. By splitting the atom and developing planet-obliterating weaponry, mankind was, in his words, poaching the divine powers.
And the local response to this monumental scientific achievement is equally bizarre. The high school mascot is still the Bombers.
Their logo features a mushroom cloud. It's not just history, it's a celebrated identity that's tied to mass destruction.
But that legacy carries a terrifying, almost Sisyphean cost.
Oh, absolutely. Today, Hanford is the largest nuclear waste dump in the Western Hemisphere. It's one of the most toxic places on Earth. The cleanup, involving 25 tons of plutonium and 50 million gallons of leaking waste, is this decades-long task.
A task worthy of Hercules, as he says.
Indeed. It's the physical manifestation of unchecked human ambition. Our aspirations outpacing our aptitude, we created something we do not possess the capacity to safely manage or contain.
That's a critical connection. The hubris of Odysseus leads to 10 years of wandering. The hubris of the American scientific establishment leads to centuries of required containment and cleanup.
A much longer sentence.
A much longer one. So, moving from the large-scale disaster of institutional hubris, Herzog then brings the journey home, literally, by hunting for a sordid family secret in Dayton, Washington.
And he was originally seeking a valiant ancestor. He was looking for a Rough Rider who was awarded land for his gallantry.
But instead of a war hero, he found a rumor of a murder-suicide involving his great-great-great-uncle Joe Roth.
And that shift is so crucial. Herzog is confronting the reality that his own family legacy is stained by the very type of moral failure and unfulfilled expectation that he's trying to run from.
The historical records, the Columbia Chronicle from 1916, they paint a very dark picture.
They do. Joe Roth, who is described as a kind, loving husband and father, co-president of a power company, lay in wait for his business partner, James Ralph, shot him twice, and then immediately shot himself.
And the motivations are still obscure. Was he worried about something? Did he want to buy the electric plant and Ralph refused?
Or did business stress and ambition just boil over, leading to this temporary psychological break? Whatever the reason, the outcome was irreversible self-destruction.
That is a staggeringly dark discovery to make on what was supposed to be a revitalizing road trip.
I can't even imagine.
So how did Herzog process the idea that even his own ancestors were potentially destroyed by these unmet expectations?
He turns to the ultimate example of self-destruction driven by narcissistic rage, Ajax.
Ajax, the great warrior at Troy.
The greatest warrior, second only to Achilles. But when Achilles' armor was awarded to the more eloquent Odysseus, Ajax felt his honor was stolen.
This wasn't a physical defeat for him, it was a psychological one.
Exactly. Denied his rightful inheritance, the symbol of his heroic stature, Ajax, just descended into madness. He slaughtered a flock of sheep, believing them to be the Greek leaders who had betrayed him.
And when he regained his sanity and saw the blood on his hands,
he couldn't live with the diminished honor. The only way to reestablish his heroic stature, at least in his own mind, was through suicide. He fell upon his own sword.
So Joe Roth's final act. It parallels Ajax's fate precisely.
It does. It suggests that Joe Roth, enraged by business failings or frustrated ambitions, acted out and then, immediately confronting the reality of his failure and the violence he wrought, chose death.
And the lesson for Herzog is incredibly sobering.
It's that an obsession with unrealized, externalized life goals is a grave error in judgment. It's an internal poison that can just destroy everything.
So if the first half of this trip was defined by confronting hubris and destruction, the second half really pivots. It moves toward finding a viable, attainable, heroic ideal.
A hero of service, not of spectacle.
Right. And he drives into Athena, Oregon, a town of 1,200 people named by a classical scholar for its geographical similarity to Athens, Greece.
That name, Athena, it carries tremendous weight. Just like the names of the early settlers, men named Isaac Newton, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin Richardson.
It's a common American tendency, isn't it? To saddle your children or your towns with these huge historical burdens, projecting immense expectation onto the next generation.
It is. But Athena, the town, it seems to live up to its name.
And it seems to find its ideal embodiment in a man named Bill Hansel, a fifth-generation Athenian.
Hansel started in ministry, came back to farming, and then transitioned into public service, becoming Umatilla County Commissioner multiple times, and crucially, president of the National Association of Counties.
NACO.
NACO, yeah. But Hansel provides an early redefinition of success by referencing his father,
The veterinarian and farmer,
who lived exactly the life he wanted. Hansel described that contentment as the pinnacle of existence.
So that sets up the tension, right? Is heroism about grand ambition, or is it about satisfied diligence?
And Hansel chose a path of service, believing that farming was maybe a little too isolated for him.
His philosophy is what really defines this concept of the modern leader. He calls himself a servant leader.
Entirely focused on serving the 3,066 counties he represented. And he emphasizes that while he is a Christian, being a Christian candidate is secondary to being a Christian who studies and researches the issues.
I love that distinction. It's a perfect connection back to the goddess Athena herself.
She's one of the most complex mythological figures. She embodies the seeming contradiction between being the goddess of war, bold action, born fully formed in armor from Zeus's head,
and the goddess of intellect, of measured judgment and cleverness. She values that harmony between extremes.
She's the ideal politician because she combines the necessity of decisive action with the wisdom of preparation.
And Hansel, who prays for guidance but grounds that faith in meticulous research and study. He embodies that measured intellectual approach to leadership.
But we have to contrast Hansel's dedication with Herzog's own deep-seated reservations about leadership itself.
He really struggles with it.
Yeah.
The host of this quest admits he has an anti-authoritarian instinct. He's uncomfortable giving directions or making these grand, consequential decisions.
He compares himself unfavorably to his Cornell classmates who just embraced the corporate hierarchy and became VPs and CEOs.
And his own leadership track record is, well, it's hilariously bad.
It is. He recounts his time as big chief of the Cherokee tribe at camp, where they lost 13 straight events.
Which forced him to adopt the "it just doesn't matter" mentality from the movie Meatballs.
And then his fraternity pledge president stint. That resulted in a lost 10 pounds, a C- in philosophy, and the enmity of his pledge brothers.
He saw himself as a bumbling oaf behind a curtain, just pulling the wrong levers.
He fundamentally questions whether effective leadership requires a healthy ego, this gene that allows you to confidently assert, I am the one worthy of this.
And Hansel's reply is so simple.
It is. He just says that confidence often comes with experience. It completely demystifies the entire concept.
It suggests that leadership isn't some genetic trait of grand ambition, but a skill cultivated through service and sustained effort.
And this focus on quiet commitment, it naturally pivots the discussion from political leadership to, I think, the ultimate form of localized heroism, parenting.
Hansel defines success not by his national titles, but by the love and respect of his children.
And he shares this deeply personal, poignant story about his son, also named Bill, who struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction for a decade.
Hansel, Dry Bill, who never touched alcohol, endured this pain by turning to Scripture.
Specifically the 23rd Psalm, and he focuses intently on the word through the valley of the shadow of death. He just held on to the hope that they would eventually pass through the darkness to greener pastures.
The resolution to that story is striking in its mythical resonance.
It really is. His son, at his lowest point, wakes up in a motel room and opens a Gideon Bible randomly. He lands on Exodus 30. Thou shalt not offer strange incense, nor shall you pour a drink offering on it.
He took it as a divine personal command.
Immediately flushed his drugs, poured out his alcohol, and called his father.
For Herzog, this is a watershed moment. He realizes that having conceived his oldest son, Luke, shortly after that Millionaire debacle, he has procreated himself into a position of leadership.
His young sons view him as a paragon of wisdom and strength, and he cannot be this self-loathing, irascible, unfulfilled man if he's going to live up to that expectation.
Hansel confirms that the parental role is to lay the foundation and prepare our lambs to be independent.
And for Herzog, the realization just crystallizes. The heroic ideal is not found in the encyclopedia or the national spotlight. It's found internally.
If he wants his sons to love and respect him, he must first regain love and respect for himself.
The journey home to Ithaca has to be preceded by a journey inward.
This brings us to the climax of the geographical journey, the drive into Troy, Oregon.
And the physical journey to this final point perfectly mirrors the internal struggle. It becomes a truly perilous descent.
He drives the Hell's Canyon Scenic Byway, and the road just evolves from pavement to loose gravel, then to soft dirt.
All while navigating blind switchbacks and 1,000-foot drop-offs. And the only warning sign says, primitive road, no warning signs.
Which is just perfect. The physical difficulty of the terrain actually induces Herzog's own moment of mortality.
He develops calcific tendinitis in his left foot, an acutely inflamed Achilles heel.
He is ironically confronting his mortality and his physical weakness, his own legendary vulnerability, right as he's approaching a town named Troy.
The universe really has a sense of humor. It places the contemporary flawed seeker directly in the mythological footsteps of Achilles.
And yet once he arrives, the name Troy is instantly demystified.
Completely. Like other U.S. towns named Troy, it was named after a local resident, Troy Grinstead, or maybe a postmaster, not the legendary city of King Priam.
The grand expectations associated with the name are just utterly betrayed by the pedestrian reality.
It's a wonderful contrast. He risked death and physical injury to reach a town whose name means nothing grand. And the locals he meets, they confirm that philosophy.
They casually recount the fatalities on that winding road. Dean E. Dean, a local Vietnam vet, he perfectly summarizes the local philosophy.
Anyone who's in a hurry is in the wrong place.
The banter of the locals is slow, steady, meandering. Their goal is simply to pass time.
And Herzog realizes that Amy's mandate, go take a drive, It wasn't about rushing to some amorphous somewhere.
It was about enjoying the moment. The journey itself was the goal.
Which brings us to the centerpiece of diligence in Troy, the single-room school teacher.
This is where we find the clearest example of the attainable heroic ideal. The Troy School serves K through 8 with only 11 students.
And the teacher, Stephanie Haggard, she completely defies the stereotype of the isolated matronly schoolmarm.
Not at all. She is broad-shouldered, younger, and she's making sushi in rural Oregon.
Her story is just remarkable and physically challenging. She originally wanted to join the Border Patrol or the FBI in Texas.
So she was seeking that external adventure, the exact kind of heroism Herzog himself had idealized.
Right. But a serious fall at Yellowstone left her severely injured. She tells him directly, "I'm titanium from the belly button down."
She is literally the bionic teacher.
A physical metaphor for overcoming limitations and integrating external trauma. She took her setback and channeled that ambition and diligence into a new calling.
Her teaching philosophy leverages that small setting. She explains the why, not just the what.
Everything is a science or history project.
Yeah.
She maintains these deep bonds, playing games with the kids, serving as Mrs. H at school and at home.
This dedication ties back explicitly to the philosophical discussions Herzog had earlier in Olympia. They debated whether heroism could be defined simply as a profession where people are constantly working towards something greater than themselves.
Giving their life away bit by bit.
Exactly.
And Stephanie embodies the answer. She never achieved the grand external adventure of the FBI, but her conscious choice to pour her full effort, her energy, and her titanium-reinforced spirit into teaching 11 children in a remote canyon is profound.
It's the heroic quality of diligence. Not just doing something, but doing it to the absolute best of your ability.
It is the humble gift given in love. Like the poinsettia analogy she shared, common weeds transformed into brilliant blooms through dedicated care.
Her story is an example of what Emerson, in his essay on truth, would call finding eternal principles in the smallest details. The truth isn't some grand, abstract concept written in Latin. It's the commitment to explaining the why to a third grader.
And finally, the ultimate moral lesson comes from a local named Ralph, whose father hailed from the Aeolian Islands, named after Aeolus, the keeper of the winds.
This brings us full circle to the Odyssey and the moral responsibility inherent in choice.
Odysseus was given the bag of contrary winds by Aeolus, with the west wind left free to take him home, and they sailed until they could actually see Ithaca.
So close. But Odysseus falls asleep, and his men, overcome by greed, open the bag. They're convinced it holds a treasure chest of gold.
And the winds escape, driving the ships all the way back to Aeolus.
Who, recognizing that this was a self-inflicted disaster, refused to help them further. He brands Odysseus an enemy of the blessed gods.
And the final synthesis for Herzog is this. The moral of the story is about choice, not destiny. The only thing that prevented Odysseus from reaching home was the flawed choice driven by the greed of his men and the temporary negligence of the leader.
The people in Troy, Ralph, Dean, Stephanie, they all made conscious, life-changing decisions, either to stay or to go, and they followed those choices through with diligence.
They are not chasing an amorphous somewhere.
Odysseus wanted nothing more than to leave Troy and get home. The inhabitants of Troy, Oregon, want nothing more than to stay put.
The journey home had already happened for them. It was a realization, not a destination.
So if we connect this whole journey to the bigger picture for you, the listener, what do we take away from it?
Well, I think this entire deep dive into the American Odyssey reveals a essential lesson for the contemporary hero. The pursuit of that external encyclopedic ideal, the grand title, the flawless life, the $125,000 question, it's almost always thwarted.
Either by our own overwhelming hubris, like we saw at Hanford and in Odysseus's destructive trash talk,
Or by a simple, understandable lack of nerve, which is exemplified by Herzog's choice to just walk away.
so real, attainable heroism. It's defined by commitment and diligence.
It's found in accepting imperfection, accepting that you are titanium from the belly button down, metaphorically or literally, and making the conscious ethical choice to be present in the journey.
It is choosing to be the servant leader, the dedicated teacher, the constant parent. It's doing something and doing it to the absolute best of your ability, day in and day out.
The ultimate heroic task, as Herzog discovered by confronting his own Ajax complex, is entirely internal. It is the necessity of regaining self-love and self-respect in order to provide the foundation of strong moral leadership for those who look up to you.
Especially your children. You cannot guide others until you have successfully navigated the emotional landscape of your own Ithaca.
Exactly right.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive. Odysseus spent 20 restless years trying to get home to the rocky shores of Ithaca, seeking completion through motion. The people of Troy, Oregon want nothing more than to stay put, having found completion through acceptance.
So if you were given the choice and the foresight to choose between Odysseus's restless, decade-long journey of high ambition and inevitable failure, or the quiet, diligent contentment of the inhabitants of Troy, which path would you choose, and what expectations would you have to moderate to find peace there?